Hey guys, welcome to Merlin Models and our first episode of the instruction manual for the Walker kit. So apologize for any noise that you hear in the background. This is our new studio and we still haven't done any soundproofing, and there's actually no door on our space. So you're gonna hear people working in the shop right next to us. But aside from that, let's first off get started with different modules for the Walker. This first module is going to be the leg, and we'll walk you through the process of organizing all 4 legs and then the process of building up one of those legs. Then you can do the other 3 on your own, and then we'll move on to the next one. All right guys, let's start our very first episode, and we're going to be working on the legs first. This is the most complex part of the entire build, so just bear with us. We'll go nice and slow, and we'll go through all the different techniques that you'll need to put this together. When you separate your legs, it's probably good if you have a workspace, or just put them in bags, but separate all 4 legs now. Oh, and clean. So there might be some leftover residue from the mold making. So because this was cast in silicone, you probably want to just take all of these parts, put them in warm soapy water, swish them around. You can brush them off with a toothbrush if you want to and just let them air dry. That way, just in case, we want to make sure that the glue has a nice firm bond as well as your paint. So go ahead and do that. Then prime your parts, get them all laid out and prime them. And then it's probably a good idea to do your base coat. And in the first painting video, I will explain the base coat color. But then for all of you guys who have purchased one, we're going to post that up on Discord and make sure that you guys know sooner than later what the base color is. It's a mixture of 2 of the colors in the kit. So we'll get that for you. I just don't remember off the top of my head. So to figure out how your pieces are laid out, you're gonna start with your main leg. In the top, it's gonna tell you what side this is. This is front left. So we know that all of the pieces that we grab need to have a front left or a left. So the ankle has an L for left, and then our hip has a front left or back right. And then this piece, which is one of the covers, also has a front left or back right. So we got front left, back right, and left. That tells us all the pieces that go with this particular leg. The rest of these are all, they go with whatever, they're all the same. So the first thing that we're gonna do is glue in our inserts. So you're going to need 3 of the small brass inserts for each leg. The screws for those, if you wanted to separate those, you have 3 sizes of screws, small, medium, and large. You're going to need 2 large and 1 small screw. Then you're going to need a number 2 Allen wrench. The longer the better. You can do it with short. We've done it with short, but it is much easier to tighten everything up with a long one. Yeah, so if you look at this part, I've already done the prep for 2 of these pieces. So we've got our insert applied on the inside, and what we're using to hold the insert in, we've gone through a lot of different variations on this. We did regular epoxy, we did JB Weld epoxy putty. Either the humidity this week has been ridiculous, or they just don't like the plastic as much as CA glue and some other epoxies. So we ended up using this Gorilla Glue, Gorilla Heavy Duty Gorilla Weld Steel Bond Epoxy. It's got a set time of about 10 minutes, and I feel like that's a little long for how much you actually have. You probably have about 5 or 6 minutes of working time on these, so you can probably get 3 legs done, but you have to do these in small groups. But what you're gonna do, we're going to take this piece and we'll put the epoxy in. This is the hardest part, so just be very patient with yourself. Take your time. You don't want to get epoxy into the threading of the insert, but we're just going to take a little bit of epoxy. It's equal parts part A and part B into our little container. And then we're just going to use our toothpick, and we're going to mash this up and just make sure that all of that white is mixed in. This right here, this amount is probably just barely enough to do 3. So if you're going to do more than 3 at a time or attempt it, again, I don't recommend attempting to do more than 3 at a time. You might be able to get through 4 before it solidifies. All right, so we've got it mixed up. We're going to take a little bit with our toothpick and we're going to spread that around. It's not super thick because again, you don't want to fill the insert as you push it in. Then we can take a little bit and we're going to dab it on the insert itself. If you get this on your fingers, don't worry about it. It rubs off. Then we're going to set it up here, and then I'm just going to work this in just like that. And now the time-consuming part is you want to go in with your toothpick and you want to get the epoxy over the edge of the insert without going into the threading. The reason why you want to get it over the edge is because that's going to create a seal to where it's not going to want to come out at you if you tighten up your legs. So we just keep on working this a little bit. This one went pretty smoothly. Sometimes they can be a little messy. Once it starts to solidify, you have a little bit of time to get in there with your fingernails if you want to and kind of clean up your edges, but you're not going to see this, so it's not something that's required. You just want to clean up the fuzz a little bit. Now that that's loose, we can wipe that out whenever we want to. So there you go. You've got an insert, and then that's going to set in about 10 minutes. Probably after an hour, you could very carefully put your legs together, but I would not tighten them very far. You could get it to where just barely tight to where you could kind of put it together, which is what we're going to show you because we're doing this quicker than you would normally do, and definitely quicker than what we would do for all of our painted versions. But ideally you would want to do all of these and then let that sit for 24 hours, then come back, okay? That's the ideal situation. But anyway, so that's how you put an insert in. You put your inserts in this piece, you've got an insert in this piece, and you've got an insert in this piece. So once you've got all your inserts in, you can just go ahead and let those dry. So let's go to the foot. For the foot, you're going to need your 4 pins and your 4 toes. So this is pretty simple to do. You're just going to attach a foot, get your pin in there, and then you're just going to work your pin into your foot. Some of them are going to be loose. Some of them are going to be a little bit harder to push through. All right, so if you need to use a flat tool to kind of push it in, on some of the other ones that we've done, they slide in really easy, so you might want to test. See, like that one's pretty tight. So I've got a drill bit that's not quite, it's not larger, but I'm just kind of cleaning out. This is anything that has longer holes in it is a very hard part to cast, so some slight adjusting to do. Okay, so after you've done your kind of boring out of the holes, you'll end up with a foot that looks like this. So when you're pushing your pieces through, if it feels like it's not going to go in, then go ahead and just stop. Take your drill bit and push it out the other way. You don't want to snap those pins. You could end up using just a little piece of brass if you need to. If you end up breaking one, you're not going to see this very much. Again, it's on the bottom and it's also covered up like that. So again, you're not going to see them unless you looked at underneath, but you don't want to break these when you push them in. So just be very careful. If the hole needs to be bored out a little bit, just kind of bore that out. So now that we've got the foot pad done, this whole thing, you can see on the inside of here, you've got your nice little circles. So you can go ahead and just glue that. Or if you wanted to make some sort of spring mechanism, you can make some sort of spring mechanism. We're just gonna glue them. And then you'll end up with a nice bottom piece that looks just like this, and everything's gonna be flexible and movable, which is really cool. So, moving on. Here's your foot itself. So we're gonna put the ankle on. So the set screws that are molded in, those face the opening for the piston. You can see that there's just little circles on the other side. So we're gonna set this just like this. We also need these two pieces, which are end caps, and our metal bar. Now on the end caps as well, they didn't bore those out far enough. So what you've got to do is you've got to take a 1/4 inch drill bit, is just drill in here. Right up to the tape line. That tape line is 3/8 of an inch, and that'll give you the space for your pin. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one. Okay, so now we've got those two pieces. You're just going to slip your metal bar in, and then you got one side that goes in like this, and one side that goes in like this. We're going to leave one off, push the other one on, push your bar on, and then you just take this piece and slide it in. Now, you're going to make sure that this is laid all the way over, and your little triangles are rotated to be even with this, so that when it gets rotated back, it's going to be facing up. There we go. Okay, so you've got it like this, nice and laid over. Even this out so that they're just, so that you have the same amount showing on both sides. They're going to grab your super glue. We're just going to add some super glue on the back side where you're not going to be able to see it. And give that a spray with your quick solvent. If you don't have any quick solvent, you just have to wait for it to dry. The quick solvent also helps for it to spread out, so it's ideal to use it. So then we'll just give that a couple of minutes to set, and then once it sets, then once we pull this back, it'll basically, these will move with this on the metal bar and create your nice little hinge. So we'll go back to that in a sec. Let's move on to our first part of the leg, the ankle. So for the ankle, you're going to need your 2 gears and your cover. Your gears are going to go in with the lines facing up. So if we grab our piece, you can see we've got nice little flexibility here now, and it doesn't go back and forth very much at all. So that's great. So the opening goes away from the piston, just like this. So you're gonna have this on about halfway, and then you're just gonna kind of fit your gears in, and they'll just kind of fall into place. Basically, you're just trying to get them into that groove. There we go. And now you can see those gears support the weight of the leg and give you that nice smooth motion. So now we've just got to put the cover on. So we're going to put some glue in just the open spots. Along the bottom. Then we'll just take our cover, give it a nice little spray, and then press it on. And then you're going to want to hold the top and the bottom and then kind of push the middle. And just give that a couple of minutes. Let that glue set. And there you go. There's a leg. So let's go ahead and move on to the piston. So for your piston, you've got your smaller piece of brass and your large piece of brass. You've got these two pieces which make the ball joint at the top, or pivoting joint. And then you've got your little ball for the bottom. So what we're going to start with is filling the bottom of the ball with glue. Give a nice spray to the bottom piece of your brass. And then we'll just set that in there and let that cure. And then we'll do the same thing to the bottom end of this. And there you go. And it'll cure in just a couple of seconds. And now when you put this in, so for the molding purposes, we didn't completely enclose the ball joint. So it has a tendency, it's just kind of sitting in there. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna take your tacky glue, which is this stuff. Aleene's Tack It over and over. This is what you would use for all your covers that cover over the screw holes. It's basically turns into like double-sided tape. You add a little bit of that glue in here, and then you just kind of swish it around, and then you can wipe this off with a paper towel or paintbrush, basically anything that you want to. So we'll just take it out, wipe off the top, and put that in there. Now, when that dries, that's going to create a flexible, tacky bond. And it's just enough to keep this from wanting to pop out, because that's all you really need to do. It's not a big deal if it does, because basically what happens is once you pose the model, you can always put it back in there. But it doesn't really lock in place as well as this top little piece. I think it was just the casting. They were able to do it with this one, but not the other one. So we've got a little bit of glue to set in our top part. Give that a couple of seconds. And then all you've got to do is this. And there you go. So once this dries, you can fill in any gaps that you see underneath and on top. This is going to be kind of a painting challenge because this fits so well inside of this other piece of brass, they're kind of made for it, that when you paint this bar, it might want to scrape off. We'll find out. But if it does, you might just have to do some touch-ups depending upon what pose you're going to put your leg in. So just be aware of that. But now we've got our foot done. Let's go ahead and do our leg. So on this leg, so we've got our little side piece that actually has some motion to it. Inside this leg, you can see a little indentation circle. We're just going to put some glue in there. And then on the pin, give it a little spray. Drop your leg in. And then hold. Rock this back and forth just in case you put a little bit of glue in there that spilled out. You don't want that to solidify. That's going to take just a couple of seconds to cure. There you go. Now you've got a leg. And it ain't going anywhere. All right, so let's go ahead and do a quick assembly. Oh, I totally forgot a piece. So we previously put this piece on. So this is a separate piece. But there's just two little tabs to glue. So if you were wondering about that, that piece was already installed. So you just have to glue that on. Then the other piece that we already did the work for, this is where the shoulder joint attaches to the body. So you've got 4 of these, they're exactly the same. You're gonna wanna use your same welding epoxy to drop in your pin. You might wanna rough up the bottom of the pin with some sandpaper. And then of course you've got your little insert that goes on in there. So just 2 notes there. All right, so let's go ahead and attach our leg. We'll start with the top. So we want to keep these, for doing a basic pose, you want this to aim down just a little bit. You can see that it fits right there inside the grooves. Then we're going to take our triangular cover. That goes on top. And then you've got your long number 2 screw. Let it go inside. And again, if you haven't waited an hour, don't try this, because your epoxy could come out. These have been sitting for a couple of hours today, and we're still not gonna over tighten for the first 24 hours. So it's gonna be a little loose. Okay, so we're just gonna leave that loose until later. Then your next leg piece is the basic leg. So if you think that you're, oh, I forgot, you have to get this thing locked in. Okay, so if your leg's gonna sit, you got 90 degrees here, this goes down a little bit, 90 degrees here. Again, this is just setting up kind of a basic pose. This piece again has the front left on it, so front left, and it's gonna face basically 90 degrees, up and down. You're gonna use your second large screw. Get that in place. Again, leaving it nice and loose unless you've waited 24 hours. And then finally, we've got this piece here. So this piece here came from the factory just a little bit too long on the back. So grab some 80 grit sandpaper, and then you're just gonna flat sand this. And basically what you're looking for is for this to be nice and tight against this without moving around. So you can see this is nice and level. It's not touching the epoxy or touching the insert. So just give it a little bit of sand. You got to take off like 0.5 millimeter to get that nice and straight. Then we'll attach here, 90 degrees. Got your cover. And then we've got our short screw. Just like that. And there you go. Now you've got a full leg. So you're just going to repeat this for all the other pieces. We've got covers for all of the legs. So that's what these pieces are. So this first piece, you'll use your tack it over and over glue, put it all over the back, and let that completely dry. And then that will just sit right there. Same thing with this one, put it in the hole, outside the hole, all over the back. That one can go in any position that you want that way. And then same thing with this one, make sure it's nice and thickly covered because it's a small piece. It's basically just a Allen screw, and that one caps right there. So then those are removable whenever you need to do your posing. But for display, you can cover it up. Thanks guys for watching. And in the next episode, we will be doing the head. Thanks very much, and we'll see you there. Bye.